we are and the system is broke. American dream has gone up in smoke. So stop sitting there all broken hearted. Let's get this motherfucking party started. Lady Liberty is ringing a bell, and we're driving us straight into hell. But don't worry, we got what you need. Crank up the volume till your eardrums bleed. Gonna make America again.
Hey everybody, welcome to the A Better Way to a podcast with Andrew and Jordan. This week we're here with Matt Larosiere, formerly of FPC, but now
You
his
can't
own man.
just introduce him like formally
We're
of
gonna
something.
do it.
He
We're
is
gonna do it.
Fudbusters.
He is currently Fudbusters. Well, you're one half of Fudbusters,
Yeah.
or is Fudbusters only you?
Well, so Fudbusters is me. This Week in Guns is me and Ivan, and then
That's
then
right.
Fud Blasters is also me and Ivan.
Fud Blasters.
So I do see how it's kind of like melded together. So it can be that.
Yeah.
Sick. That makes
No,
that
he's
makes
a
more
he's a
sense.
gun lawyer. He's a gun builder. He's very popular. Everybody fucking loves this guy.
I learned about him.
I'm
from-
handsome,
never-
that I'm allowed over for Thanksgiving.
I've never heard anybody say that guy from Fudbusters sucks. I've never heard anybody have like a negative interaction with you that I give a shit about.
Oh, so I see that's why you mentioned FPC then.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm sure those fuckers have plenty to say.
Would you believe that I don't actually talk to the two people that run that account?
FPC is two people.
It's more
I
than that,
think
but
so.
as far as the Twitter goes, it's like 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense.
So what's it like to be a gun lawyer before we get into beef? Before we get
It's really weird. I mean, I didn't start out to be a gun lawyer. I was just I like knew about guns. I was interested in guns. I was a tax lawyer and went to start my career in DC, which was a hellhole. And like, as I was doing policy work, I was at Cato Institute, which is a libertarian think tank. I was working on tax policy, monetary
yeah,
policy.
Cato.
What?
Fuck yeah, Cato.
Oh, and they come in with this gun case, and they're like, "Who wants this gun case?" They're like, it's gross. I always thought Second Amendment work was like
It's
sexy
gross.
for like Harvard grads, and I'm like, I'm an Alabama grad, and in DC they act surprised that I'm wearing shoes most of the time. But when I'm like, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. They're like, okay, yeah, you do that. You do that. That's your thing now. And so that's how it all
That's
started.
just your job.
And then very quickly, I got to know the other gun lawyers, of which there's like 4, right? There's not that many people who actually specialize in gun law, despite what SEO may tell you. If you Google gun lawyer in my area, you'll find, right, a lot of people who have like 4 different websites for their same law practice. But like, there's really very, very few people who practice law. And among the people who do practice law, who practice gun law, because there's no money in it, but among those of us that do practice it, there's virtually no one who knows half of a 16th of a shit about guns. And that is like really frustrating. And it explains a lot of the reasons why our laws look the way they do now.
Yeah.
And so that's something that through Fudbusters and through my advocacy that, we're hoping to correct.
What seems strange too, given how punitive the government can be about running afoul of gun laws, that like there's nobody out there really that specializes in protecting gun owners.
Who's going to pay him to do it?
Not the government.
Yeah, like, and honestly, if you want to look at actual victories that have had significant consequences, it would be the public defender's office. Because guess what? The majority of people who are in jail for simple firearms possession crimes, convictions.
You said this on a recent podcast, and that really shocked me because I'd never thought about it that way.
Yeah, no, and it's horrible. But so public defenders are always they're trying to make a name for themselves and stuff like that, but they're always thinking about this because that's what they deal with all the time. The public defenders are the only ones that have had a credible shot at taking chips out of the NFA, and they've done it.
Wow.
Multiple times. So frankly, between like it's at the stage where if you want to be helpful to gun rights, you're paying your taxes is actually better than paying any of the 3-letter organizations.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, that's obviously not the way it should be, but that just happens to be the way that it is, because these 3-letter groups don't ever touch the criminal side, because it's not sexy and they can't fundraise off of it. And so who's gonna sit there and do something about it? Turns out the federal public defender's office and me and a couple of my friends who are just bleeding heart people who can't say no. So, but it does not pay well. And I do, but I've been like super blessed to have developed the following I have, which is like relatively modest, but it's enough to where I can justify spending the amount of time it takes to do this public advocacy work, to fight at the appellate level for people who need it, and to bring my own and our own challenges to the stuff that's going on in gun law. And it's really amazing what just one person can accomplish. And frankly, me and Ivan sitting together, just like looking through the regs, looking through the codes, we've been able to come up with some really awesome strategies. And then we sit there going, why have none of the groups like brought this lawsuit? And then every time it's the same result. It's like, oh, right. Yeah. Because that would be winning. And that's
I guess if you win, you can't fundraise.
That's not profitable.
That's not profitable. You're right. And also some of the best victories that we can have is like some of the next moves that, and I don't give a shit about telegraphing my moves because people act like, oh no, you got to be all in covert, right? Like you can't give away your strategy.
Well, what are they going to do? Like fucking change the law?
Yeah, change the law. What is the judge going to do? I saw where you were coming from, so I'm going to not apply the law.
Yeah. I saw the challenge you were going to make, so what I'm going to do is just like if they make it so that you can't challenge it, they've done the thing you wanted them to do already.
Right. So my next target is after clear my plate is the import export stuff. I think that the death of Chevron and some of the other cases that have come up really paved the path to asking questions about some of the import restrictions, like how come we can't import a pistol if it's ever been used by a military? Why is that? What does sporting purposes mean? What is the sport? Like these are questions that should be asked, but if you're in the pocket of, if like some of your major donors are, U.S. firearms manufacturers, they're the people who beg for this.
Yeah. They don't.
What if it's
they
the
don't want
greatest
import.
game?
Yeah.
Then it is sporting purposes.
That's good. But so that's my next, and also because I do have some, I'm not the most reliable narrator. I do have some personal bias here in that I, broadly when it comes to firearms, I view U.S. made as a derogatory term. So I think it would be better to get some better guns into this country because we need the best stuff we can get.
Yeah, again, something the government won't be too keen on going after or being being in
Here's
support
the
of.
ironic thing. When you look at the text, history, and tradition of the Second Amendment, like when you look at the Revolutionary War, one of the first things after the Intolerable Acts was banning the importation of arms and munitions. And what was the first thing that the founders were doing? Surreptitiously arranging the importation of shitloads of firearms from France, Spain, and the Netherlands. Like, shitloads of them. So how come it's all of a sudden, if it has a detachable mag, it can't come from anywhere that's not here, right? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and there's that whole I don't know if this is related to that, but I formed one day a CZ Scorpion, and that's a checkmate.
Like an
firearm.
Evo or a
Yeah,
BZ?
like
Okay.
the old the Evo, the ones that are not made here.
So the 9mm one, not the 32 ACP one.
Right. Yeah. And it was like all these warnings about like, oh, you need to, now that it's a rifle, because it's a short barreled rifle and not a pistol, you got to swap out this many parts
Yeah.
to make it to US made parts for 922R or whatever. And I'm like, has anybody ever, like, has this been a problem for anybody? Has anybody ever like gotten 10 years for shooting somebody with a gun with too many foreign parts?
No, but repeatedly people have effectively been excluded from the firearms industry. And there's a couple cases where the courts will have upheld 922R, but it wasn't in the civil rights context. It was pre-Heller, certainly pre-Bruin, and it was also not in the individual rights context. And it was also the context where like these people were like, hey, we got a bunch of SKSs that had their bayonets removed because they came from California. Can we put the bayonets back on? And ATF is like, no, right? Because like you can't, right? Because it would wind up bayonet and the magazine. Yeah, the magazine and the bayonet is what they wanted to do. And they're like, no, because then you'll have made the gun with too many parts. And so the company goes, okay, and does it anyway. And it's like, okay, you snitched
Smart.
on yourself, and
Yeah.
now they caught you. So what did you expect was going to happen? That wasn't even a criminal thing. It was a federal court upholding the revocation of their license. So those are the instances where 922R, has been exercised. A couple situations like that, and I think I have a video on Fudbusters on 922R where I detail how 922R is enforced too.
Okay. I haven't seen that one. But
And if you're curious about that, they actually there's like 3 or 4 agents that are specially trained in Martinsburg. And what they do is all day they're on a special regimen where they'll be given screws from different parts of the world, and they file off little shavings of them and they taste them. And that's how they know, if they get to your gun, they could, and they check Bulgarian, Canadian, right? That's how they do it.
because you could just be like, I made this. I have a machine shop and I made this screw. So how would they know?
Right.
Nobody
So
serializes
that's
like fucking.
That's an industry joke, where, and of course, the one thing I take seriously about being an attorney is client confidence. I would never say who said this, but there is somebody I talked to that hilariously said, "Want to see my 922R compliance kit?" And I said, "Sure." And they had 2 Harbor Freight stamps, and one was U and one was S. I was like, based.
Holy shit!
That's awesome. Like metal stamps?
Yeah,
That's sick.
I made this.
That's awesome, man. Harbor Freight's one of those places that's like super dangerous to go. I know this is like on a tangent, but super dangerous to walk in with like not an idea of what you want, because you'll just walk out with so much shit.
Yeah, I remember when my wife we were already married the first time she came with me to a Harbor Freight. And she was like, "What is this place?" And I'm like,
Well, because it's not even like all good,
No, it's mostly horrible.
Yeah, but there are some things like you walk like if you need a little rolly chair for your garage or something like that, or you need like I've heard their car stands are okay. Like
the new ones.
Yeah. You can get stuff like that. Like I got a set of motorcycle ramps from Harbor Freight that I would never trust with another human being on.
Right. Well, and also like a motorcycle jack, a whole ass motorcycle jack for like $150.
Yeah.
Right. Or you'll be there and you'll just be like, "Oh wow, I didn't realize I needed a socket wrench that size, like that specific shape." Right.
Yeah.
And it's like bullshit that'll last, one job maybe. But then there's also tools like the Pittsburgh. Well, it used to be the Pittsburgh. Now they have Icon, whatever. Are like good. They're like actually good and have a lifetime guarantee.
Well, and that's the thing for like your regular garage mechanic. That's great. The fact that it has a lifetime guarantee is more than enough. I used to work as a mechanic in a shop, and I would have a rule that I would buy tools or, knickknacks and whatnot from Harbor Freight, but nothing that went on a fastener. So like all my sockets, all my hand tools and stuff like that were snap-on, or at least something like Cobalt or something, just slightly better. Craftsman, like older Craftsman, when it was owned by Sears. And then as I kind of like started branching out a little bit, I was like, there's a purpose for these things, and if you need something in a pinch, as long as you know what you're using and you're not abusing it. Like I would never put a breaker bar at the end. Like I would never put a Harbor Freight socket at the end of a breaker bar. But
so
like
I'll tell you, I was a mechanic too, but I did mobile service. I didn't work in a shop, so
cool.
I literally had an El Camino full of tools.
That's out of a movie.
That's so fucking sick.
I loved it.
Did you have a denim jacket that you wore and you got out with a cigarette in your mouth?
No, it was a 79 Elky, so it wasn't the cool one. But at least it didn't have those awful dual headlights. But anyway,
fair.
I also had a weekend job at Harbor Freight, and so I really got to know the tools, and I found out what the good shit was. And I'm telling you that, you say nothing that goes on a fastener. And I understand why you would say that, because 90% of the socket sets were dog shit. But there was one set that never came back. And I noticed that. I'm like, this set never comes back. And so I bought one, and I used that. That thing was in the El Camino for 4 years until I lost both of the 10 millimeters and bought another one. But that thing was great.
It came with two?
Yeah.
Oh, a short and a deep?
Well, the two short ones, there was a half-inch drive and a 3/8 drive. I was using the half-inch one for a while. But I also, the wrenches, the flexible head Pittsburgh wrenches at the time, I'm sure they're not as good. But, dude, so many, that got me out of so many Volkswagen jobs, right?
Yeah.
That never gave me a trouble. But anytime they would even hint, this was my advantage though. Anytime there was a hint that bitch was starting to walk, on Saturday I'd just take it with me and drop it off at the counter and go take another one. So that was how
That's awesome.
But I'll tell you one thing. My rule for Harbor Freight was, if it plugs into the wall, you're not gonna work. Until eventually the Vulcan welder, I'm still using that fucker. But I remember I was in a pinch and I bought the $39, and they don't sell it anymore, but it was the $39 impact driver. And I was like, I just need this once for this specific, there was a specific wheel lug that I was taking off with a 38 millimeter thing, and it was stuck.
Yeah.
And so I bought it for that. It pulls that sucker right off. And I'm telling you, just like that socket set, for another 4 or 5 years, that thing, I beat it. I was trying to kill it. And in the last 2 years, it was trying to die, but I zip tied the cable up to the handle so it was in tension, and it ran for another 2 years. And I was like,
that's like that Jeff Foxworthy joke about the cheapo sunglasses you can't get rid of.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Listen,
yeah, we probably alienated half the audience of the car stuff. Me and Ivan do that.
No, that's the way to do it, man. That's how we do it on the show.
think there's far more garage mechanics in our audience than professional, Snap-on. I have one wrench set right now that is Snap-on, and I have a couple hand tool sets and stuff like that. But I would never, if I didn't work as a mechanic, I would never buy Snap-on for personal use. That's just not necessary for the amount of times that you need to use it.
There's one place to buy Snap-on for personal use.
At a tag sale.
The pawn shop.
Yeah, or that.
Yeah, the pawn shop. You can get... and I had my favorite thing, and I was using it in the machine shop. My only Snap-on tool that I still use was a Snap-on inch dial caliper. I loved that fucker, and I got it for $25 at the pawn shop.
Yeah, that's nuts.
3 weeks ago, I dropped it. And I was I've broken so many tools over my careers. That was the first time I was sad. I was like,
Yeah.
sad
You're
about
never
the
gonna find
caliber.
something like
Yeah,
that
you've got
again.
an attachment to it. I get that.
Yeah, no, that was my that caliper sat on my South Bend, and I was like, I always made a good part. Like I always, just right. And I mean, I've got Toyos, right? But that snap-on dial caliper, that was my caliper.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I've been lucky with my stuff. I haven't lost it. I've kept it in this. My toolbox is an absolute train wreck right now.
He's got anxiety, so he keeps real close tabs on his tools.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh well, I was gonna say my toolbox is a fucking nut, like crazy right now. I found a pair of needle nose pliers in a Tupperware box that I was supposed to use for my car emergency kit. And I was like, I don't know why I put this in here. I probably put it in there thinking I was gonna put it away soon, and then the top went on it and stayed in there forever. But yeah, usually I'm good with that kind of stuff. But anyway, yes, let's we can go into tangents about tools for a while. I'm sure.
All my tools, our tools, because my wife is a handy one. She got a lot of them from estate sales until we finally got until we finally had like the money to start like buying new tools. For a long time, she was going to estate sales and finding like old power tools, and we've got.
You can get stuff.
But you're still using them fuckers though.
Yeah, for sure. And our socket wrench set, it's like I don't know how old it is. It doesn't have like a brand name on it. It's just this red case, and all the sockets are just loose in there. It's so difficult to find what you need, but it's all in there.
My socket set that I've been using for about 7 years now is a Kirkland. My mom saw it at Costco.
Oh, that's gold. That's gold though.
Kirk.
My mom saw it at Costco, and she was like, Matthew would like this. And then I was like, I didn't need a new socket set. And then it's been in my truck ever since.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Kirkland.
Big.
Stuff.
It's not big. Like, it's got everything. That's a great set.
That's awesome.
I'm only missing 1 10 mil.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it didn't come with 2, and that was their first mistake. So yeah, we were talking
about who is fighting the fight for gun rights.
Who's fighting the fight for gun rights?
So how can
I'm sorry.
So there's fucking
you were saying the same thing I was saying, I think unintentionally, and then I was
like
like
a 3-second delay, and I'm having a stroke.
Sorry, Andrew, you asked.
The hive mind. Okay, so public defenders. But how can regular people fight bad gun laws? How can just like, non-lawyer educated Joe Schmoes who don't want to go to prison, how can they fight bad gun laws?
So this is a hard one, and like I feel weird answering this because
I'm sorry, I don't want to make you feel weird.
You're good. I don't want to be perceived as like trying to like enrich a friend or myself or whatever based off of the truths that I've been telling on how the national organizations actually work.
Sure.
So
like, my next question is going to be, where do you send money? So
right, and so well that's most people don't want to be a plaintiff in a lawsuit, right? Most people don't want to do that sort of thing. And so it comes down to who can you support with your money, realistically. And like, honestly, the only real way to safeguard your money is to safeguard your money and be a steward of it. And like, check into the people who are claiming to do what you want to do. Do they have any connection to the gun world? Do they own any fucking guns? Is there any evidence that they have ever fired a gun, right? Like, if there's not, they're probably not going to do that great, right, of a job stewarding your assets. And also, like, do they spend their time telling you what they're doing or doing what they're supposed to be doing? So, basically, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. I think that the best way to do it would be, I think just there should be a bunch of guys like across the country who are attorneys, who just bring challenges, and you know, there could be ways to like prioritize it or whatever. And like those guys can all have Patreons or whatever, and they can be responsible for their results, for what they're doing with those money. And also can say like, and have the integrity to say, all right, I'm funded to the point that I can't really do more, you know, on my own. So you should go support the other people. I think that would be the best way to do it, because at the end of the day, and you'll see the 3-letter groups telling you this, oh no, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. You need to have a whole bunch of experts and this and that. And it's like, oh yeah, where the fuck are those people? Because they don't actually exist. They're not at any of the groups. They wind up paying or not paying conspicuously one law firm who winds up putting a junior associate on it, unless it gets to oral argument, and then the big partner, who will then cede that the NFA is constitutional, by the way, which has happened multiple times. Of course you can regulate SBRs, right? That's happened repeatedly for the big gun groups. So that, like, right now, there's not an easy answer. The most important thing to do right now is, one, expect better of everyone who claims to be doing something for gun rights, because better can be done, and it's not that fucking hard. So yeah, expect better and be more of like a vigilant steward of your resources, because your money is valuable. You worked hard to get it.
Yeah.
You should not waste.
Does it help to just send money to any of these organizations? Like, does that do anything?
Well, it depends. There's some state level groups that are incredible. Like, you know, Maryland Shall Issue is 100% volunteer. They can't waste your money. It all goes to important shit. And that's like a very, you know, battleground place. And no one disagrees with me on this. You know, I will say, I'll admit, I do work for MSI because I support them that much. You know, we're close. But
yeah,
there's
it's not like
groups.
you're going to get a payday from it. You're like,
no, I can't. There's other groups
if you
that
do, God will know.
Yeah, right. That there's other state orgs that are volunteer run or that like need it really. But it depends on what you want, right? Like, you have to ask yourself, what is it you want to support? Because if your answer is just gun rights broadly, well, you're probably going to vaguely waste your money. You probably want to think, do I want something better in my community? Do I want to see cutting edge shit? Like, do I want to see like weird smart people shit happening? Right.
Weird smart people
right.
shit?
No, like, you know, the shit at the edge, like that's the important stuff. And no major group is going to touch that because it's not sexy. Right. But
I think it's sexy.
Thanks. But like, the important stuff is like,
he's talking about me.
You know, the import stuff, the like, what level of felony is too much? Like, that's mega important. Like, if we can take down felon in possession stuff, that's the majority of federal convictions. If we could take away the majority of the federal government's customers, you're doing something big, right? Like, that's important.
I know. I want you to elaborate on that because this is the second time it's come up, but I want you to just like really clearly state for our audience that hasn't like watched your stuff, what you're talking about when you say, you know, a majority of people in the prison system right now are there because of felon in possession.
Federal prison.
Right.
So most of you have heard of 922G, but 922G is the long list of things where if you're one of these, it is unlawful for you to possess or receive or whatever a firearm, right? And the biggest one there is somebody who's been convicted of a crime that would be punishable by 1 year and 1 day, right? A year or more. So there's a lot of people who are convicted for like some state offense and they'll plea out to it and it's something nonviolent. And then years later, they're living in a bad neighborhood or whatever, and they get stopped and frisked and they have a gun. The feds like having high statistics. Like, they win 90-something% of the cases they take. What's a great way to do that is by taking those open and shut cases where, like, were you a felon? Yes. Did you have the gun? Yes. And so they nail those people to the wall. And so that's why that's most federal prisoners. It's not people who are like doing things that you would associate with, federal prosecution, like you'd
Like
imagine
real hardcore criminals, career racketeering criminal masterminds,
coyotes and
Yeah.
in serial interstate arsonists, or mustache twirling train robbers, right? Like
this is something
I
that
take offense to that.
this is like a point of contention, right? And I feel like it's only now just being really addressed by the gun community at large. Is that like, like a drug dealer has a good reason for wanting to have a gun.
Yeah.
And like, I think that just because you're breaking the law does not mean that you don't have rights. It does not mean that you're like not allowed to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Like
breaking
what
the
is
law
can be
who cares
dangerous.
if you're a law-abiding citizen? Some laws suck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing, like we talk about all the time how legality doesn't equal morality, and even if you are breaking a law, the law says that you can't be in possession of a firearm if you're convicted. Right. So just the fact that you're breaking a law doesn't, if you base the idea that your rights come from the Constitution, which I personally don't, then they're still above water at that point, because if they haven't been convicted of it and they just happen to be breaking the law, they still deserve protection just as much as anybody else. I, for one, think that a gun in and of itself is just an inanimate object, and if somebody doesn't have to use it to defend themselves, then nobody's ever going to get hurt. So it's innate. It's inanimate. It's not going to hurt somebody, and everybody has the right to own one. But
no, 100%. It's and here's the thing: is like the gun community has been its own worst enemy for a long time. It's been like a lot of people point to progressive intersectionality because of how retarded it is, right? Like, and it is. It's like, oh well, because I believe in abortion, I also have to believe in this other thing.
Yeah.
And because I believe in this other thing, I also have to believe in this type of reproductive rights, and also that and somehow this gets brought into like supporting like burqa laws or whatever, and then you're like, you see all of this coming together, and you're like, you realize that like every single one of not a single one of those things can be squared with one another logically, and then they look at you and they just say no, so
whatever, fascist.
Right,
NPC
so
angry.
Right-wing people go, you stupid. You can't believe those. You believe those at the same time, dumbass. And then at the same time, you go to a right-wing person and you're like, hey, we agree that they shouldn't regulate firearms based on barrel length, right? Yeah. And at the same time, you say that somebody who breaks one of those laws, are they cool or not cool? I mean, yeah, right. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say it. I mean, boating accident, right? It's like,
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And so if somebody breaks like a minor law, like a civil infraction, obviously they have the right to own a gun still. Well, yeah, of course. Okay, so illegal aliens should have the gun. No!
Yeah.
No! That's a civil misdemeanor. No!
Yeah.
It wasn't even a misdemeanor until like 10 years ago. It's the law-abiding citizen. Okay, but okay, so what if you break the SBR law? No! No! Right?
Yeah, no. It's a I've been seeing the term brain rot floating around a lot recently, and
Yeah.
I don't like it because I think it removes like logical conversation off the table, and you don't have to figure out why somebody believes what they believe.
No, but that's the thing is that a lot of times when I've tried to dive into let's figure out how you logicked yourself into this position, and I find out like there is no logic there. It's like
no,
we can't
you have to ignore
like
a lot of stuff. You have to ignore where the logical conclusion is in order to get to your belief.
Yeah.
You have to just not be ideologically or morally consistent. And that's easy if you're retarded, right? But if you have two brain cells to rub together, like this should make you feel uncomfortable.
Well,
and it's okay to feel that discomfort. It means you need to challenge some of your beliefs, right? Like,
But
Yeah.
this is
Oh,
so
no,
weird
yeah,
because it's like people who are like some of these people like have intelligence, you know, like they can say smart things about like certain topics, but then it's like, you know, like guns come up and it's like it's out the window, right?
Oh, this is one of my favorite
one
ones.
side or the other.
Yeah, both sides. Like the whole M16 AR-15 thing. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, an M16 is not an AR-15.
Yeah, where it's like
that's what people are
Like
arguing.
M16 is a weapon of war, but an
M16
AR-15 is an MSR.
war gun, AR-15 modern sport, because Armalite rifle. It's like, oh, okay. All of the guns that were made by Armalite were full auto. You know that, right? No. Modern sport. Varmint get. Oh, varmint. Why was it varmint? 22 caliber. Hey, I found this this report that the 223 Remington was specifically loaded up from the 222 to match the killing power of the 30-06.
Wait a minute. This came
Varmint
up
gun.
on this came up on Twitter with this was the guy that Jordan, the guy that fucking that like called you out randomly.
Wait, that
unnecessarily.
2YK
Yeah,
whatever guy?
2A-Y2K.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
like he was like a big part of that like fucking shit fight.
I've never seen somebody cry so hard on the internet for such a laughable reaction from
Yeah.
he was like
this was a
stay
dude.
tuned.
No,
I'm
listen.
gonna come back to this. You're gonna kneel before my knowledge. And I was like, bro, I'm not gonna read what you read.
Man,
what you write
this
anymore.
this guy was fighting other people about what you're talking about. And in the middle of his like fight that had nothing to do with either of us was like, you know, oh, also, by the way, a Better Way 2A is another one of these like dumb left
Trash
with, like,
2A.
trash opinions.
Yeah.
Did you say something wrong?
No, we weren't part of it at all.
No, because I said initially that 2A was for killing cops, and
That's what it's for.
I don't see.
Oh,
I was
that's
like,
a
well,
leftist
how is
position. You're a
That's a
Marxist.
left. Yeah, that's a leftist position. Apparently,
There's
it was.
a broken clock twice a day.
It's literally in the Constitution. Like you have, look at the context of
It's
why
not
the Constitution was
controversial.
written.
It's
No,
not
this
controversial.
exactly.
Well, because nobody can stop and think for more than 3 fucking seconds, and that's why everything.
This guy
is
had
so
plenty of
frustrating.
time to think. He
No,
had
no,
all
yeah,
day. He was
because-
going off.
And we go back
all
to
day.
the brain cell
Yes.
question,
Yes.
right? Like the insufficient quantity, or there's a surplus of chromosomes. There's something chemical happening either way, but like you can't. And so anyone who's watching that, like, is struggling-
Apologies to the many retards in our audience.
Yeah, like
I'm
like
I'm
all of us.
sorry.
We're all fucked up,
Including us
but-
three.
Yeah, but so people cannot deal with like if it's okay if you feel uncomfortable about the fact that the Second Amendment was written for shooting cops, right? Because that is a uncomfortable thing.
Yeah.
But think about the Revolutionary War. Guess what didn't exist? Officer Dibby Douglas and your Uncle Randy, who's a cop, who swore that they ain't gonna do none of that gun control. Professional uniformed law enforcement didn't exist. It didn't exist until, and people will say, no, there was some around the Civil War. There was some, but
Yeah, what were
it
they
really
doing?
didn't exist till like the turn of the 20th century, like the late 19th century.
Yeah.
You had deputies, it was very different, and everyone was plain clothes because they were normal people, and you were pressed into becoming a deputy. Like, you were forced to do it because the town thought you were responsible, not because you enjoyed beating up black people, right? So, of course, at that time, that also came with the job, but that was,
Yes.
part
Yeah,
of
yeah.
early American history. But people can't do, so who would have been the closest thing to a person in a uniform that's heavily armed, standing around enforcing unjust laws?
The army.
It's the redcoats, right?
The
Is the answer?
the British Army
occupying-
specifically.
I didn't know if this was
Occupying
going to be a
force,
trick
yeah.
question.
And they were,
It's so obvious.
and what was the things they were complaining about? Oh, unjust taxes and things.
Yeah.
What
That's
was
so
yeah.
weird.
Yeah, and who was going around going to enforce those
The
laws?
Democrats. It was the
Like, what-
Democrats. The Democrats were going to.
Well, but who was going to come and say like, "Hey, you haven't paid your taxes. Now we're going to
No,
make
the
you get in
Democrat.
trouble." It was they weren't in uniform, is what I'm saying.
No, the
No, it was
Democrats
the-
were. Yeah, it was the.
No, the
Oh, yes,
actual
yes, yes.
modern
Yeah.
Democrat Party
Yes.
was there.
Yeah,
at
the Democrats went back in
Revolution.
All
time.
right, sorry guys, I was a little slow on the uptake there. How many times can I, guys? What are they not getting? That's not the Democrats.
Yeah, no, they're just like,
Jesus
no,
Christ.
just in case. Like, and I've heard that because I've always like I have a little book that I write down of like the dumbest reasons I see of people deciding to get a gun, right? And
That's awesome.
one of them was my buddy who's a county sheriff's deputy, and he wanted like something a little more powerful in case the Democrats take over. And I was like,
Yeah, because Democrats are immune to 9mm.
no, but also I was like, who is the Democrats gonna send? And he just stares at me
to take
blankly
over.
like I'm stupid. And I'm like, that's
No,
You
he's one of the
enjoy it.
good ones.
you enjoy. Yeah, no, y'all
Yeah.
are all gonna, all 16,000 of you are all
They
gonna be
all
in
have
harmony.
they
and
all
not
have a
doing
way
that.
to become good cops.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but I mean,
It's-
he
it's
is like,
within
I can
each
tell
one
you,
of
he
their-
is a guy that wouldn't do that, and I bet you they'd probably kill him. Right. So,
Yeah.
Well, that's the
yeah,
thing.
fair enough.
I'm sure we could all name somebody who we know that wouldn't do that, or we'd like to think wouldn't do that.
yeah.
But for
Yeah, but
everyone
the
saying
thing
that
is,
they
the
wouldn't do
moment-
it, it's
the
easy
moment you
for
don't
Andrew.
do it, you're not a
shut
cop
up!
anymore.
Shut
Sorry,
up, Andrew.
A Yankee talking over it.
No. It's... Sorry, Andrew. I love you. It's very easy for somebody who is not being threatened with the loss of their job and their family welfare to say, "Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that."
Yeah. And who isn't also surrounded by a room full of other people with guns that are being told to do it?
Exactly. All right, Andrew. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I said my
I
piece.
just realized I have your logo on my shirt.
Yeah,
Hey.
we were a sponsor for the for your team for the AK Masters.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, that was awesome. That looked like a good time.
It was so much fun. So much fun.
Our buddy Easy was there.
Yeah, he was. He was like one of the only other people to shoot forward down the slide.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I saw that shit and I'm like, I know everyone else is gonna go up and try to get their little legs under, but I dropped my gun
little
and I went,
legs.
"Wahoo!"
That's awesome.
The man
So
has
wait,
no fear.
did you shoot from the bottom of the slide? Like you slid down the slide? and
No,
shot?
no,
he
so
do-
at
he
that
dove
stage-
down it head first whilst firing.
Oh,
No, that stage you start with a stage gun and you have to shoot all these cardboard targets. Then you have to put the stage gun down, and then there's a big like plastic tube that you have to slide down. And then you climb on top of a building, and your gun is waiting up there.
I see.
But most people were like all awkwardly like lifting up their legs to try to get their legs into the slide, and I'm like,
That's awesome. That makes me respect him so much more now, knowing that he just dove in head first.
yeah, no, it was
Not that I did.
getting up off of the gravel was the fun part, but
Yeah, I'm sure.
but it was a great match. I'm definitely going again.
I didn't know that you weren't supposed to slide down a slide with your kid on your lap. Like that's one of the
Oh
worst
no,
things that you
but
can
that's
do.
new. That's new. Like,
Well,
people
I'm
have
sure
been
it's
doing
been
that.
happening, but like
Yeah,
people.
well, no, but it becoming common knowledge that it will like wreck your kid's fucking spine and legs.
Yeah.
is like new because of
So,
social media.
My mom did that. What does it do?
Yeah. So all of
so-
our parents did. But what happens is your weight carrying the kid down
If
is
they get their leg caught on the slide or under you,
your weight. You don't stop because it's not.
Oh,
your
so it's
leg.
a what if thing. It's not like a natural
no,
conflict.
No, it's
it
happened.
happens a lot. It
No,
happens.
no,
a
I mean
lot.
like it's if there's an accident. It's not
Yes,
just like
correct.
it's not
Yeah,
some
no,
weird
no,
physics
no,
thing
no.
that happened just because you're
no,
on.
no.
Oh
It-
no.
it's
like
every
if they're
time
wearing
you do it, you're
Yeah,
still
yeah.
like
loses
we're all
all
like
this.
3 inches shorter than we should have been.
Like over time, the G forces they tell you not to do it anymore.
Yeah, it's just something that you didn't hear about happening, back before fucking people
Social
could
media
scream
and
about
stuff.
it on
Yeah,
Instagram.
for everyone
Yeah.
was like with their phones. Look how I broke my kid.
Yeah,
Oh my
look
God,
at my
yeah.
kid's backward
Different
legs.
now.
Look at my kid's backward leg. Well, so I didn't know that. So my first time, my daughter's first time going down a slide, I was like, of course I'm gonna go down with her. She was like 6 months old. At
Yeah,
the time.
same. I did the same thing.
Yeah, it was
And
a
what
kid's.
did the constable come up with a whistle and go?
No.
No.
but-
It's just
Yeah.
you read about it now
Oh.
because people are like writing think pieces about how you shouldn't
Exactly.
put
All
your
these
kids in
things that you
unnecessary
shouldn't do with
danger.
your kids anymore.
But there's
Which-
a method. There's a method that you can do where you hold the kids sideways and hold their legs in so that they don't stick their dumb fucking legs out. And
Yeah,
cause a problem,
You
know?
essentially hold them in the fetal position, like on your chest. or
Yeah,
something
correct.
Like
yeah.
But
Let's go
yeah,
down the slide now.
roll up into a ball. But I
Like
went down
fucking
this
Shaquille
slide,
O'Neal, your kid.
dude. I went down this slide with her on my lap, and I didn't realize that the angle. It was a kid's tube slide, so it was narrow. So I had to lay on my back
You
to
had to
get down
squeeze.
this.
Oh, so that
Bro.
was super dangerous.
Dude, I luged down this slide with my daughter, and I had no
No
chance
control
to
over
stop
your
myself.
speed.
Not, dude. So I shot out, and I fucking skipped across the wood chips with my daughter on my lap. I had wood chips all up my back, dude. I was scratched up. She was fine. She landed on her dad. I landed on the wood chips, but I got up, made sure nobody saw that, and I was like, we're not doing that again.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, now I learned something.
Yeah, for when you have kids, don't make that mistake.
Yeah, I do want kids.
Kids are cool. I used to not want kids, and then something, I don't know.
I sent him a bunch of baby pictures, and he was like, "It's time."
No, I like your kids. I liked other people's kids. It never clicked for me. But Matt, your camera's like slightly out
I
of
know.
focus.
I've been looking for something to wipe it with.
He's trying to trick it into focusing on his face.
I saw what you were doing with your hand. It was like oh, there we go. Is it better? No.
No.
I think your camera just gave up on focusing.
Hello? It's in the light.
That works great. Just hold it there.
Just do that. Just do
Yeah.
that the whole time.
Me
Every time
mugging.
you talk, just put the camera in your mouth.
Yeah. Hey, folks, you know what blows? Buying stuff for your gun or your gear on the internet only to get it home to realize it sucks. Wouldn't it be great to take the guesswork out of buying stuff like that so that you knew what you were getting was quality stuff? I'm so glad you asked, because that brings us to one of our sponsors, Panther City Tactical. Panther City Tactical carries AR parts and tactical gear, and only their favorite stuff that they personally use and love. Think brands like Bravo Company, Emissary Development, B5 Systems, S-Tac pouches, and more. I actually got the Streamlight for my Glock from them, and it ships super quick, and because it was over $100, I got free shipping. They also throw in candy and stickers with every order, and being a sticker whore myself, that's pretty cool. On top of that, Zach, the owner, is a great dude with great values, and we wouldn't advertise anybody on this show that we couldn't vouch for ourselves. So check out Panther City Tactical and use the code ABETTERWAY, all one word, for 10% off your first order. Once again, that is code ABETTERWAY, all one word, for 10% off your first order. Check them out. Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so I think we're at a point where I want to talk about the FPC beef.
Yeah, I was just
Great.
going to
Yeah,
bring
this is
that
the
up.
right time. When I'm
Right after we just talk about reversing our kids' legs.
Because this is not just like they did something that you didn't like and now you're telling people about it. Like they kind of like fucked you, right?
Yeah, they
Oh,
took
not
their
just me.
shit.
A lot of people. Like they didn't fuck me that hard. It was like the stuff that happened with me. Like some people are like, oh, like they fired him because he did this or that or the other thing. No, I fucking hated that place. I didn't want to be there. I hated them. They hated me. I was like, you guys are a bunch of fucking liars and you're misleading these people. And I literally am so depressed that I get paralyzed because blue collar people come up and say that they've donated their hard earned money to you for you to waste on fucking cam girls, right? And I can't handle that. And I was very open about this.
Brutal.
So, right. So like, no, I'm not like, they did like, I'm making much more money on my own than I was there. Two, I'm actually getting to fight for gun rights, which is something that no attorney who was working at FPC ever got to do. Three, they don't actually employ any litigators, just so you guys know. They don't have a team of lawyers. Their 990s are public. You can go look at them, and you'll notice conspicuously that any lawyers that were part of FPC are not anymore, with one exception, and that is one that is paid very handsomely to go and beg for money. It's just not what it says it is. It's and unfortunately, this is something that I've learned, that most 2A orgs were created to enrich a very small number of people. But if you want to talk about like ways I was personally affected, I mean, there's a few. I had written
the big one that I want to talk about was probably what you were about to say before I opened my fucking mouth, but the the legal document that you had helped create that they thought was like a bad argument at the time, and you got shit for, but then they recently used it to win an argument.
But they didn't win anything. They didn't win anything. So let's make that incredibly clear.
Okay.
So this was in the Cargill case, right? And it was the stupid images, right? And when I started contracting a while before I was hired, and they had filed in a case about triggers, and they'd written something that was not quite right, and they had some images that were purporting to show a semi-automatic firearm, but they had an auto-sear hole, all right? And I was like, that's not what you want to do. So I rewrote the whole thing, explained why it doesn't, like, why a bump stock does not fit into the statutory framework, and I had the images redone to more properly reflect how a semi-automatic firearm works versus a fully automatic firearm, where I put the third pan images. And like, I filed that in an amicus brief in the Supreme Court, and FPC's president, Brandoncombes, he is not a lawyer. He pretends to be, and he has repeatedly told people he was a lawyer, which has gotten him in trouble when he lived in California, because there are consequences for that. But anyway,
yeah, you're not allowed to do that, right?
You're not supposed to do that. I think you should be able to, frankly, but whatever. So we wrote this detailed explanation, how everything worked, me and Joe Greenlee, who now works at the NRA, because obviously, on how these firearms actually work, why the bump stock definition doesn't apply. We file it. And Eric Jaffe, who is an extremely expensive lawyer that FPC still uses constantly because Brandoncombes has like a bizarre protosexual fixation with this guy, calls me and Joe up and just starts browbeating the shit out of us, called us fucking idiots, said that we were retarded, couldn't believe, like he literally called us retarded, said he could not believe that we would write something so stupid that you cannot challenge the text of the statute in this way. You have to focus simply on the APA analysis. Like, oh, and guess what? The cases where they were doing that, fucking lost. What ultimately went up in Cargill? The theory that we advanced for the first time in our amicus brief was later echoed in Cargill going up. So the case was finally decided on that theory. And so like the Supreme Court had my brief with my images and my text once before. And then what FPC did was they copied the text that I had written back then in 2019, but for some reason used the wrong images, used the images with the auto-sear holes. So they had my updated text, my correct description, which is what was referenced by the court, but used the auto-sear images, and then hilariously, the court used the auto-sear images when describing a semi-automatic firearm. So that's FPC's later contract lawyers not paying attention to the distinctions there, operating off of one document, copying what I had written in my 2019 document and putting them together. And when people pointed out, hey, Matt was the first one that made that argument and you shit on him, and literally they forbid me and Joe Greenlee from ever working together because of that. When literally me and Joe Greenlee were like this, we still are, we still talk all the time, we still love working together. But we were forbidden from working together because FPC's pet lawyer thought that our theory, which ultimately won a fucking Supreme Court case, was retarded.
Wow.
And then when I was just like, hey, like, I'm glad to see that this finally held today. And then I was kind of like a little petty. I was like, by the way, you fuckers punished me when I had the images redone or whatever. And when I advance this theory, right? This is the theory that me and Joe first came up with. And so like Brandoncombes gets on and you can tell it's him because he's a complete alcoholic, and he like he was just tweeting all fucking wrong, right? Like and it's like late at night, and all of a sudden he starts tweeting more directly at me,
all caps, no backspace,
no, and saying like, oh, obviously, like, how can you not tell Matt didn't write this? This was before he was hired. And I was like, bitch, like, I know where the bodies are buried and I have the receipts. Are you seriously, you want, like, this is how you want to do it? And And so they kept moving the goalposts. They're like, well, no, because we had the images made right before we started working with Matt. And it's like, yeah, and they were wrong.
They showed an autoseer hole.
Yeah, and then the description, which was in the brief you ultimately filed, 1-for-1, and which I had filed more than once in the Supreme Court with your name on it. Like, it was mine, and y'all fucking punished us for it. And, like, they just couldn't, or Brandon, just couldn't let it go. Like, he kept moving the goalposts and kept pointing at other things. He's like, no, see, look, I found the email where I asked this artist to do those drawings. And so he'd sent the email screenshot where he said, hey, please call me. Like, that was his big thing. Of course, he didn't show all of the correspondence I had where I was like, yo, can we, like, have it, like, highlight this part and stuff like that? And can we, like, not have the autoseer pinhole in the thing, right? So that was that. But frankly, I wasn't pissed about that. That was just me, like, pointing and saying, fuck you, I was right. And they were, you know, effectively profiting off of it, saying, look, we supported they're like
fundraising off of it.
We supported this. It's like, no, like, the two people who advanced that argument are no longer there. Oh, and by the way, who's the third person who wrote the brief right before mine? Adam Kraut. Also doesn't work at FPC anymore.
I feel like
Probably because they treated him like dog shit. And by the way, when he wrote that one, it was after I had started contracting and he and I were working together. Like, they went through so much work, like, so many lies, so many, like, side stories to not say, yeah, we had help. But there's no one to point it back to because, well, what are they going to say? Oh no, Joe actually wrote that. Well, Joe works at the NRA now. Oh no, Adam actually wrote that. Well, Adam, that was a fucking bloodbath, right? He's not here anymore.
Yeah, because why would they say that they had help from somebody who doesn't want to associate with them or isn't associated with them anymore?
Right. And so people kept asking who actually had this done, like, who actually did it, whatever. And they're like, oh, it was the FPC team, FPC Grassroots Army, hashtag, right? So it doesn't fucking exist. It doesn't. It's a guy who has a bizarre, like, obsession with lawyers, has no interest in firearms, doesn't own any firearms, really. I know he owns at least one because I bought him one for his birthday. But it's a grift. It's a fucking horrible grift. And this has been eating me alive for so many years. And I finally decided I can't take it anymore. Something just lit me off. And, you know, all the other litigators, all the other people who actually do the work in the space know what I know. And FPC was shitting on SAF, saying SAF is taking credit for the case that we did the hard work on. And I was like, you fucking bitch. That's a Cooper Kirk case. Like all of the cases that you bring that you don't pay for. They don't pay Cooper Kirk's lawyers at all. FPC just gets to put their name on it and then fundraise off of it. There's a secret donor. I don't know who it is. I have no idea who it is. But somebody foots the bill for all the Cooper Kirk litigation, and FPC will send out emails saying, if we don't get $5, $50, or $125 donation from each member by midnight, we will miss a critical funding deadline in this lawsuit. This lawsuit that they have no connection to.
Really?
Wait,
Yeah.
Who's Cooper Kirk?
A law firm. It's a white shoe law firm.
Oh, okay.
It's a big law firm, big luxury law firm. And FPs, and I was like, pot, kettle, neither of y'all pay for your shit. Like, how dare you? And then they responded to me, and SAF responded to me, and I did not want to bring their blood into it. But SAF's president goes, no, Matt, we still have to pay for our local counsel sometimes. And I'm like, do you think that was an own? Like, you're saying I'm right. So at least he wasn't lying, right? And so I'm just letting all of the blood out, and I'm just like going, here's the bodies, right? And the other litigators, a bunch of them texted me, and they were just like, what made tonight the night? And I was
like, not that you're wrong, but like, what was it?
yeah, and I was like, I didn't know why, but just seeing, like, because I like Adam Kraut, he's a good person, and seeing him be attacked that way, just it's like,
I'm not familiar with this situation you're talking about with Adam Kraut being attacked. I don't know what we're talking about.
oh, like there's it's don't even worry about it. Like it's something that you wouldn't it was like Adam did like some like interview. It was so nothing, right? It was so absolutely nothing. And it was I only saw it because I muted FPC long ago. I only saw it because somebody in my Discord was like, "Hey Matt, look, they're at it again." And me being petty and disabled, I couldn't.
You gotta look.
I couldn't look.
You gotta go.
And then
Unblock.
the only it wasn't block, unmute or on whatever.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, something happened, and I just started typing. And so like when they were texting me asking, I was like, I felt the music. I just felt it, and it was good. And I got a lot more shit to say. It was such a fucking horrible place. They're such unbelievable liars, and I have been like, this stuff has been eating me away at the inside.
Well,
for
and
so long.
it's annoying because for a long time, and I believed this because I had no information to the contrary. People were like, oh, if you want to donate your money to someone who's going to fight for gun rights, that's not a cringe lord rightoid, yeah, it's FPC. FPC's down with the cool kids. FPC doesn't care if you're gay or trans. FPC's got your back. Was like what people were saying like forever. And
Yeah. Because they're good at posting meme on twitterbirdapp.com.
Yeah.
Bro,
And
let me tell you, like, I'm gonna drop some never before told truths.
Please.
I'm gonna tell you something very petty. I am
We're here
holding
for it.
off of my whole. I have a stack of bullshit.
like a
right?
physical stack or like emotional?
Oh, like physical. I have all of the receipts, and I have a folder, and I am.
And if
I
you're
told
killed,
myself-
it will be published.
So I told myself, because when I started Fudbusters, Brandon told me no one will ever watch that shit. Gun people do not have the attention span or IQ to watch 15-minute videos. It needs to be 2 minutes.
Yeah,
I
because
was
he
like,
knows.
I was like, it can't be a makeup tutorial. He's like, yes, it can. And that's why their channel gets hundreds of views, right? They do have more subscribers, but they get hilariously low views. And so I told myself, as a reward, when I get to 100,000 subscribers, I'm just going to dump my whole folder. Nothing obviously privileged, or I would not violate confidence in any circumstance. I wish I could, but
Yeah.
I'll just give a sample.
A little tidbit.
God. So there were like multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars were spent on like marketing self-help things. Like at the president's insistence, we were all sent to the Jocko Willink fucking you know what I'm talking about, right? The extreme accountability seminar where we were taught like just like the most insane mind drivel garbage, and all work was stopped at the organization for a month or more so that every
Holy
day
shit.
we could go over Jocko Willink's teachings. And then the next month it was a fucking another one. And so what would happen is we'd get like at max a week of work done. And then he would stop everything and make us read some fucking book. And it was so unbelievably depressing. And then we'd have to sit in the little breakout rooms. And then he even brought someone in who did market-based management. And it was always, how do I get myself out of running this failure? Like out of failing so catastrophically, there must be a way to put the blame on someone else, right? So there was always that. I was writing I'll tell you this. I was on TV a lot before I went to FPC. I was to the point where like Judge Napolitano was texting me. This is back when he was still, like on Fox, right? And I would go routinely And so as soon as I started working for FPC, I was like, I'll start repping FPC on my news stuff. And so in my first month, like 3 different times I was on national television. Then Brandon is like, you can't be handling your own media anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, these producers love me because they have access to me. No, you have to send it to the media inbox. I'm like, who runs the media inbox?
But who are they going to call retarded?
Right. Who runs the media inbox? And
Was it him?
it was just him.
Yeah.
And so what would happen is like my booker would contact me. I'd be like, hey, my boss says you have to like contact this email. They'd contact that email. He would ignore them for 12 hours and then reply with like 8 questions. So we got burned. We never got on television again.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Somebody who's doing
Cool.
cable fucking news isn't going to
Doesn't
deal
have
with
12 hours and doesn't have time to go back and forth and ask
Right.
like
So that
21
happened.
questions.
But after all that, I was writing a very long policy paper on assault weapons bans. I had found, like, I had gone back to the earliest hardware regulations. I had like literally, I went to the Library of Congress and I had looked at things on Fiche, right? Like I had dug for like 4 months working on this. And I had written, like, at first, when I first talked to him about it, I had written like 15 pages. He's like, okay, make sure it's all on the FPC drive. Like, do not keep a copy of this on your personal computer. Only touch it on here. And I still trusted him at the time. I was like, okay. I get it, like 60 pages. I have original sources for the first time a bayonet lug was ever mentioned in a hardware law. Like the first time a flash hider, like the original justifications. And it's damning for hardware bans. Brandoncombes has a fit and deletes the folder.
Why?
Why?
Like, what was the purpose of that?
I don't know. But
Holy shit.
I had spent 3 or 4 months every day of my life working on I was so happy and so proud of it.
You can't get that back.
I fucking cried. Like,
Dude, I don't blame you.
What
That's
did he
insane.
tell you about it?
he feigned ignorance. He was like, you need to be focused. He told me, like, he was like, I don't know. I just archived it. It's what he said. He didn't know I still had admin access to the drive. He fucking deleted it. Like,
That's super weird though.
Yeah.
That's not just like mean, that's like strange.
yeah, no, it was because he wanted me to focus on, I think he wanted something bizarre, like, you need to focus on lobbying. I'm not a fucking lobbyist. Well, yes, you are. He registered me as a lobbyist in Virginia.
Okay, so I need you to focus on lobbying. So just stop working on this, and then we'll get back to it later. Like why delete it?
I don't know. And like I said, when I asked where it went, he would gaslight me and say he archived it. But I had access
That's
to the
so
archive
strange.
folder.
What's wild about this to me is like there are people whose like livelihoods are depending on the cases that FPC takes. And,
FPC doesn't take cases.
well, the cases that they pay people to take. And
Well, they don't. No, they don't.
what do you mean?
That-
Where's the
you're
money
not
go?
even-
Almost all. Okay, all the vast and sweeping majority of the litigation is done
Mhm.
by Cooper Kirk. FPC does not
That-
pay Cooper Kirk.
Who pays Cooper Kirk?
We don't know.
Oh, the anonymous donor.
Yes,
Sorry,
the donor
I'm
isn't
circling
FPC.
back.
It's to the law firm.
That's
and
what I
you'll
mean,
notice
but there's
that there's
Yeah.
the big 3-letter groups that bring in the most money every year. On their tax forms, they don't spend much at all on legal expenses. That is a and,
So is it
and I
salary?
was like, look at the fucking 990. They took in millions of dollars, and like about 5% of the total budget was spent on legal. What do you think that means? Most of it was spent on salary, and they still managed to lose money somehow. And people are like, oh well, I mean, obviously it's the salary of the lawyers. And I was like, everyone is
There's no
listed on the
lawyers
990.
working
There's
there.
no lawyers. They're not there.
that's wild to me.
And so, but people are still like, no, but they're getting all these big wins. It's like, really? Or are they just saying they're getting big wins? Like,
Well,
that,
that's
Someone,
like
someone else is
marketing.
winning, and they're being like, "We did that. You gave us money, and this went."
Marketing is everything. Like if you can get people convinced that it's you winning, then it really doesn't matter if you are. Because how many people have the inside knowledge that you're sharing that are not going to just take things at face value and say, "Oh, okay, cool. This is where my investment was going, and I'm glad I did that."
right. And that's the scam.
It's like mysticism. It's like I found that if I walk outside and spin around 3 times, that it will rain.
Right.
It's like I found that if I donated to FPC, there are gun rights. It's
Well,
there's
it's
no
like
actual
cases that
connection
FPC
there.
never litigated in, that not even Cooper Kirk litigated in, because their cases are not significant winners, right? Like, don't get me wrong, some of them win in the same federal circuit that they keep filing in. That's so helpful to all of us, right? But those that do, there's no, like, what's the value add? Did a little bit of plaintiff searching. It doesn't cost millions of dollars. It doesn't. You can plaintiff search by posting on twitter.com and saying, we need to do this. If you're willing to be a plaintiff, hit us up. It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, especially when you've got 500,000 followers like they do, or however much it is.
But they say, oh, it costs a lot of money to find plaintiffs. Fucking bullshit. It's all nonsense. It's going to salaries for a guy and his friends. His fucking girlfriend was the head of HR. That's normal, right?
Just regular stuff.
Well, Jordan, you're muted.
I had my mouse on the wrong screen.
Oh,
no. Like a professional. Sorry. No, I was saying that's normal. That's my wife's in HR, but I couldn't work for her company.
Right.
That wouldn't be kosher.
Like, and unfortunately, this is the case for most of the national groups, because they wind up being grifts. Like, I haven't worked with all of them, but I can say that, like, hey, if you're claiming that you're paying for these lawsuits and you're actually not, you're lying. That's weird. Why are you lying? Right? Like, to me, that's enough to be like, I don't trust you.
Yeah, for sure.
And
absolutely,
they claim to be lawyers. And, like, let me tell you something. Being a lawyer is not cool. You don't need to have lawyers to have a good rights organization. You just need to be friends with maybe one to bring the suits that you want them to bring. But they purport to be legal experts. Name the person there that is a legal expert or firearms expert. Name them. I'll happily wait.
That's wild to me, because like you watch the stuff that they post. This is
it just, I mean, yeah, you want to masturbate.
Lawsuit printer.
Lawsuit printer go bury. They're just masturbating for days on end. And people go big
and saying, like, fuck you, no, and on Twitter, and then posting it to Instagram that they said that to somebody. Like, whenever somebody from an anti-gun group says something about taking guns, they say they jerk each other off about how they say fuck you, no. And people are like, oh, like, we're past the point where arguing is going to do anything. And I understand why they do it, because it's engagement. It gets engagement from their followers and things like that.
Well, and like it doesn't. Most people are not very high IQ people. And, like, for a lot of people, that's like, average. I want that. Do that more. Right?
Yeah. That made me feel good when I read it.
Yeah, fine. That's fine. That's okay. Right? Like, I am not here to whine about it. If you're like, I like when the alcoholic construction worker that has no experience with firearms says a swear word to politic, because I couldn't do that on my own. Right? And it's like, I want to pay for that. There's all kinds of shit on Patreon that you can support. So that's fine. But I'm just like, I was a director of the fucking organization for years. I'm sick of being in the dark and saying, and like pretending that it's not a fucking grift. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm telling the truth. And people want to hate on me for telling the truth. That's fine. Like, keep doing what you want to do.
Jesus, for he spoke the truth.
Well, no, do whatever. I don't give a shit if you donate to FPC. I don't give a shit if you think that FPC is the Messiah. But I told myself early on, when I started finding this shit out, and also, like, it's a shame that Twitter made likes private, because that motherfucker is horny. It's gross. Yeah, like, I think you can still see the likes on Instagram. I don't know if he can clean that up fast enough. But
on his official
feel like I can
account,
sleep
he's
now.
doing it?
No, on the main account. He doesn't have his own account because
he's on the FPC account liking thirsty stuff.
What?
He's like liking thirsty stuff on the FPC account.
100%. 100%.
That's nuts.
Weird. That's not how you get the new followers, man.
That's why I have a better way to a 2.
Yeah.
Kidding. It doesn't exist. That's insane to me, man. And like I used to be a fan of them. I don't know, even
we all
as
did.
recent
We all
as
did.
a
Don't
year
feel
ago.
bad.
Yeah, because they're better than they're like the non-fuddy they're supposed to be. Like you were supposed to help us defeat the Sith, not join them. And that's kind of like how I've seen them go now. Is like they're just turning into this other fuddy.
No, it's just always been a
organization.
smaller, shittier NRA.
Yeah.
That's what it was when I worked there. We got to do some cool stuff when we snuck around under the nose of the president. Oh, by the way, if they were a good group, if they were trying to advance gun rights, don't you think it's weird that he all of the sudden last year tried to get everyone who worked at the organization to sign a non-compete agreement?
Yes, you can't go work for another organization
You can't do work.
Yeah, you
for
can't. No,
anybody
you
else
cannot work in the
also
gun
doing
rights
it.
space.
at all.
Yeah, for a period of time, right? And this was, of course, before the FCC blew those up, but he made everyone sign a non-compete.
Wow.
That's not fucking normal.
Yeah, that doesn't help anybody.
That does not. It's like, it's just like, I don't even know what to say because I don't want to like, I don't want that to be like my thing. But oh yeah, I told myself when I started seeing this shit, especially when I would see the amount of money that would go to fucking thirst shit, it's tens of thousands of dollars, dude. I
Like
said,
what?
like sponsoring them and,
Oh.
and right, sending gifts, right? I said I'm not going to be like Colin Noir, like no one's going to be able to say, why didn't you tell us, you know? So I'm telling.
Yeah, no,
telling-
I give you a lot of credit, man, for doing that. It's not they're a big organization, and
Yeah,
I mean
for sure.
but you've got a hell of a following also, and I think that's what kind of
It's
makes...
cost me a lot of money to tell the truth. I'll tell you that.
Well, you know,
I have lost contracts that I had. I'm still making more money than I was making with those assholes, but it was very uncomfortable to take these steps. And I'll tell you what the most insulting one was. Right as I was leaving, I took on Matt Hoover's case,
the auto keycard.
the
one,
auto
right?
keycard case, because I thought it was the right thing to do.
We have a Patreon question about that.
Okay, let me say what happened with,
you, no,
with
you,
them.
you,
It was the right thing to do. I saw this guy. I was like, somebody's got to do something. None of them were going to step up and help. GOA said, after he had signed with me, GOA said, if you fire Matt Larosiere, we'll pay $10,000 of the first $50,000 of a DUI lawyer in Jacksonville. That was cool.
For
the
what?
fuck? To
For
be
his
be
representation.
lawyer now.
And it's like,
Why
that's the
DUI
only
lawyer
option.
though?
What?
Because that's
Why-
who they could get.
Oh,
Well, no, that's in their network, and I'm not in their network.
Interesting.
And so he would have to agree to go into debt.
Yeah.
And before anyone says I've got permission to share that part. So, so they didn't help. And I was like, that's not a fucking expert. I know that guy. He's a good lawyer, but you need people who can point up these fundamental issues. Right. And people shit on me. They're like, oh, you didn't force the trial judge to rule correctly. Well, that's what it was always going to be, a case for appeal. Everybody knew that from the beginning. Federal court isn't fair. And the deal was, I'm in as long as it goes. I was like, you don't have to don't ever worry about it. You're not going to see a fucking bill as long as you're in there. Like, don't worry about it. And right after I do that, right after I break my back, traveling across the state, busting my fucking ass, writing the first Prost Bruin motion, all of this shit for the first fucking time, FPC goes on Twitter and writes a long diatribe on how no one has any business challenging the NFA right now. Because now is not the time, and it's not part of the broader strategy. It's not like it's not the time yet. We have to do all these other things first.
Because there is a strategy.
Yeah. But when then?
But it's like, but you can the day after that was the day after I filed the first post-Bruin motion in the fucking country. By the way,
it's like, who were they talking about?
What?
Who were they talking about? I wonder.
That was like, that hurt.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't doing it for clout. I was doing it to try to save the guy. Right?
Yeah, because the government wants this guy gone.
Yeah, and like, I've got a really good feeling about where that case is going. And it's not just me, by the way, who was working on that case. A lot of the other guys who, let's just say, I've made a network. People like to work with me, and I've like been blessed enough to build favors with some of the smartest motherfuckers in this country.
Yeah.
And I called in every single one of those. Right? So like, there's people worked on the briefing in Hoover's case who had worked at the Solicitor General's office for decades. Right? Like, this wasn't a personal thing. This was what's the right thing to do. Right? And no one can deny that we've done great work. Right? If we had done poor work, the motion I wrote wouldn't have been copy pasted in like 30 different federal cases by now.
Yeah.
Which I'm proud of, by the way. That's not, I don't give a shit.
That's big.
Yeah.
So
but what's the only thing they can do? How dare you challenge the NFL?
Now's not the time.
Now's not the time. You don't know.
Now's not the time to save a man's life and livelihood.
Yeah. Don't do everything you possibly can for your client. What are you, a lawyer?
This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Off Color Decals. The folks over there have a special place in our hearts, and not just because they paid us to say this, but because they've been printing our stickers since we started A Better Way 2A. Off Color Decals is a queer worker-owned co-op who's extremely active in the community. And they also just got married. Congrats, guys. Not only do they have a bunch of really cool stuff on their store, like their new Subdued Pride Flag Defend Equality patches, but they sell a bunch of other stuff like drink koozies, pins, stickers, and more. On top of this, they kick ass on the wholesale front. They've got state-of-the-art sticker printing capabilities with small minimum orders. If you've ever bought any of our stickers, you know how great they are. 5-year outdoor life, UV resistant, waterproof, the whole 9 yards. They can do laser engraving too. It's pretty sweet. So this is for you. Whether you want to buy some cool stuff from them or use them to do some work for you, use code ABETTERWAY for 15% off your first order. And on top of that, if you're a nonprofit or a mutual aid group, you get an additional 20% off your wholesale order all the time. That's pretty nuts. So go to offcolordecals.com and check them out. Go, do it now, unless you're driving, in which case don't.
So I want to jump ahead then and get this question in, because this is something this guy's really interested in, this specific thing. G Stump, who's a Patreon, submitted. If I am not mistaken, Matt was one of the lawyers involved in the auto keycard case. Is there any update on the appeals process? What are some of the factors that led to a guilty verdict when the auto keycard was obviously not a machine gun? Or said another way, how does one rationalize the guilty verdict? I have genuinely tried to put myself in the prosecutor's shoes, don't steal people's shoes, and don't understand the legal basis of their argument.
That's a hard question, right? And that's, frankly, that question is the entire basis of the appeal. So the question is, how did they uphold a conviction? The weird thing about the auto keycard case is, through motion practice, we ring-fenced the government into a very narrow definition. At first, they just said it was a machine gun. I moved to dismiss that indictment. I said, how can we know what machine gun it is? That's not sufficient. That's not constitutionally sufficient notice. And then they said, oh, well, it's a part designed and intended, right? And I was like, oh, whoa, right? Move to dismiss again. And I was like, and when I did it the second time, I had a chess play in my head, and I'm like, there's no way they'll fall for this, right? On my second motion to dismiss the indictment, I said, They cannot argue. I said, there's no possible way they could argue that that singular piece of metal is a combination of parts. I wonder if I can move to dismiss it, making the whole thing about, right, because right now they're saying it's a single part, which the statute says designed and intended solely and exclusively. So I'm going to focus on, it's a bottle opener, solely and exclusively, right? And I'm like, there's no way they'll take that fucking trap and then reframe it as a combination of parts. That would be too good. And they took the bait. I moved to dismiss it. They redo it again, and they call it a combination of parts. I'm like, right?
Wow.
Like, how can you say, like, it's a single hard piece? It's not parts, right? They're busted, right? And so I go to dismiss it again, and the judge denies it this time. And she says, well, that's a question for the jury. We object. No, this is a legal question of statutory interpretation. You have to do this. We'll revisit this after the verdict. So now we're in a very bizarre situation. It's fundamentally wrong that that was a factual question. It has to be a legal question decided by a judge. So the simple fact is it shouldn't have gotten to trial because it did not fit within the statutory definition. Period. End of story. It wasn't a part designed and intended solely and exclusively. One, because it wasn't a part. It was just a sheet with drawings on it. It can't be a part, right? And if it is the part, if the whole thing is a part, it's not solely and exclusively because it obviously has multiple utilitarian features, right?
Yeah, because you could use it for as a bottle opener
or whatever, or you could jelk with it. Who cares? But
yeah,
like because these were like, the statute was written in a very specific way because it was written to capture very specific things at that time. All right. So there was the part, and the part so here was the problem. It was M2 carbine kits, right? So M2 carbine, an M1 carbine becomes a select fire weapon with a combination of parts. If you have them all together, that's a machine gun, right? Each one individually, A-okay. But a combination of parts designed and intended for use in converting a weapon into a machine gun. And then they were like, well, what if somebody like makes one part? So they're like, okay, a part, but we don't want to confuse it with the M2 carbine problem. So a part designed and intended solely and exclusively, because there's a lot of M1 carbines with M2 carbine parts, but not all of them. And the government had, by the way, sold those to the civilians. And we're like, they're trying to like cover their own tracks, right? That's why they're different. Either way, those are things that have objective functional qualities. So it has to be either a part or combination of parts. The government gets ring-fenced into combination of parts. The trial court doesn't dispense with the legal question, allowing the whole thing to go to trial. The trial is like days and days and days. And this is like, this isn't particularly egregious about this case, but like most of it was about like, had they used the mail, right? And so like the post inspectors came and they were like, yep, mailed it, right? Like that was days. And by the way, both of the defendants were like, yes, we use the mail. Like, you don't have to do this. They still did it for days, right? They're like, our whole thing is that it's not a machine gun. We admit that they were sent in the mail.
yeah. That's why you can send it in the mail.
But so the jury is sitting here like, processing all of this information. That's a lot of information. It's days and days and days. And then the only evidence that the item is a machine gun is the testimony of a ATF firearms enforcement officer who, and like, all of this is public information, guys. What time before I was talking about this case and someone was like, how dare a lawyer talk about what happened at trial? The fuck?
First of all, shut up, nerd.
Yeah, like, and also, you're allowed to do that. It's a public. Anyone's allowed to go in and watch, right? And also, it's on appeal. So all of the things I take issue with are in a public document. Anyway, you just have the ATF agent saying, well, it was a machine gun. It's a machine gun. It's a machine gun. It's a machine gun. And we're objecting. We're like, that's a legal conclusion. They can't do that. Right? well, don't have them like actually come to the conclusion, but like, so they say it without saying it, right? And so, right, like you're supposed to, as an attorney, you're supposed to presume that the jury was able to like, find whatever. But here's the thing. We can't know based on what theory the jury convicted under. Because the government was allowed to present information about like, oh, a shoestring could be a machine gun. This could be a machine gun. A paperclip could be a machine gun, right?
Yeah.
But they had used this specific part of statute. And so my whole closing argument, in addition to everything else, I was like, guys, combination of parts. Like, look. And I held up an auto key card. And I was like, you guys have these in the room. You can hold them in your hand. Hold it in your hand, please. Like, flip it over. It's flat. It's hard. And I'm like, look. And I'm sitting there as hard as I possibly can with my thumbs. It's like, this is a drawing. It can't even catch your fingernail. Like, it's just a drawing. Like, and of course, we talked about and again, all that's public. They deliberated for 2 days, which is pretty good. It means you got them thinking.
Yeah.
But they came back and they convicted. Irving was the guy who ran the website on all counts, and Hoover on 5 out of 8. So we were at least convincing enough to, right? That that's morbid, right? But the thing is, I think the major problem is that the jury was allowed to convict on a roaming theory of what a machine gun is. And the government got to talk about all of these things that could be machine guns, right? Everything from a full-on AK-47 to, a paperclip, without being properly limited that this is what you have to find in this case. And in fact, we argued, both defendants argued, hey, you need to include a clarifying instruction because of all this crap the government said. And the court refused to do, though. The court refused to do so. They said, well, and the logic being, because it says combination of parts, that's enough. We don't want to add emphasis to it.
Yeah.
It's like, but you have to add emphasis because you took it out of the context of a statute. Right? So basically, the government got to have their cake and eat it too. They got to escape the limiting language of a single part, which is designed and intended solely and exclusively, right? And effectively, what I think, like, what could have happened, and again, this theory brain, right? Maybe, like, another thing that's not allowed to happen is that the jury cannot permissibly convict a guilty mind when the thing that was actually done was not illegal, right? Like, so the classic example is like, you can take a McDonald's cup and say, I am selling drugs, right? Would you like to buy the drugs? And then you give me the money, right?
And you give him a cup.
Yeah. You can't convict that person.
Yeah, because that's not actually doing the illegal thing.
Yeah, he didn't, right? And so, even if you believe, right, like some like armchair warriors on Twitter, like sit there and say, like, we'll sit there and like think that, these people, these human beings deserve this. Right, because they, like, for some insane reason, I can't even pretend to like justify it. But they'll be like, look, because they said this, and whatever. It's like, you can say anything in the world, but it doesn't magically make what you're doing
make you
illegal.
a criminal. Does it
Yeah.
make this a crime?
Exactly. And people, I don't know, we just have a really fucked up society.
It's a very punitive society we live
Yeah.
in.
Yeah,
I think everyone's got
yeah.
trauma.
Yeah, but I don't think, like, people, let me make something clear. A lot of people say a lot of bad things about the prosecutor. Don't do that. That's not helpful. She was doing her job. All right. And if it wasn't her, it would have been someone else. It just is what it is. She didn't make the decision. Right.
We're not on an all prosecutors are bastards.
I'm an officer of the court. I can't say. All right.
Okay. I won't make you say that.
Right. So I am a lawyer lizard, right? But I'm just telling people, like, the people who were out there saying bad stuff about the prosecutor, you actually hurt him. Like, that was taken into account.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
You didn't just hurt her feelings; you hurt Hoover's case.
And you actually did freak her out a lot, but like you really like a lot. I spent a lot of breath trying to talk that stuff away, right? Like saying, how could he have possibly made them do that? You know, blah, 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 like. But the fact that I was having to explain that means that we were in a bad place.
Yeah, that they were already thinking about it.
Yeah. So, well, no, it wasn't. That was the subject of the arguments that day.
Oh, that was it.
Was
no, because it was at like sentencing and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, so I had to argue about that for hours. It did not help him.
Like, listen, Your Honor, people on the internet say some out of pocket stuff.
Yeah, that's basically what but
to me, this seems like something that just really shouldn't have happened. Like, this doesn't.
No, really
should. This seems like something for the appeals court, specifically because it seems like it was not the system working as intended. Sometimes the system working as intended makes for bad outcomes, makes for outcomes you don't like, and you just have to kind of eat that. But this does not seem like the system working as intended. This seems
it's obviously not. Like, this is the statute does not cover this. And if the statute does not clearly cover something, it cannot capture it. That's point number one. Point number two, like, I'm going to be a good court officer.
Yes, be good.
But it was like, so as far as the update
put down
goes,
the angry juice.
as far as the update goes, God, there's so fucking wild shit that happened during that trial. Like, someone from
do you have like PTSD? Like,
bro, somebody from the ATF who used to work in tech branch called me and was like, "Yo,
I'll break your legs, motherfucker."
No, that expert is dirty.
No,
he fucked the results up.
No,
he redid the tests. And I was like, how do I bring that shit up? Like, why didn't you bring this up earlier? You know, blah, like, why didn't you say something? And he was like, it was just eating at me, you know, like I just had to.
I didn't want to tell you in a way that could actually help you, but I wanted to get it off my chest.
Well, he got me to
felt bad.
Well, he gave me the information, gave me the ammunition I needed to take a swing at the bat. But like, the shit was dirty, bro. And then like, there was some dirty shit going on, but not at the. I'm not saying at the prosecutor's office. I'm saying in the federal government. Like,
yeah. Because you get the sense that they want to fucking make an example of these people.
Yeah.
And it's like the most random shit. It's just like a drawing on a fucking piece of metal.
I do have to say this. It's just people have like spent way too much time focusing on that prosecutor. She was like super professional, and polite, like to everyone involved. And you know, but at the end of the day, she's the representative of Goliath, right? You're David, that's Goliath's lawyer, right? Yeah. Like it's not going to be fun. But also as far as updates go, this is wild. This just dropped today. I couldn't fucking believe it. But the federal government filed a notice of supplementary authority because I was like, okay, how do I bring up the bump stock case into this? And I had thought about a good theory. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to do this. The federal government files a notice of supplementary authority saying that the bump stock case justifies the conviction. Like, they're saying,
how does that even, and what is that, first of all?
Well, so the bump stock case was a statutory interpretation case. There was no constitutional element whatsoever. The Second Amendment was not mentioned. The feds brought it up saying, the Supreme Court looked at bump stocks and they didn't mention the Second Amendment. So they're implying that it's constitutional to ban machine guns. So this court should ignore their Second Amendment argument.
Wow.
Right. And it's like, so then in my notice of supplementary authority, it's like, hey, actually, look, that case was about statutory interpretation. That case thoroughly examined what is and is not a machine gun and separated it into 3 component parts that never got explored down below. And also wasn't a Second Amendment case. Really weird that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Like, that was like, so that's the update and that just dropped today. And yeah, that's weird.
That's So
suspicious behavior from the government.
Listening at home, and it's probably going to be out for a few weeks by the time this comes out. But that's nuts, man. That's like, I feel like I'm watching a true crime TV show right now, and I have a narrator walking me through it, like walking me through the things that are just too complicated for me to understand in my child brain.
Yeah. No, so
But in reality, I'm not a lawyer. And you do a very good job of. So I read your article on the reload, on oh my god, the words escaping me right now.
Chevron.
Yes, on Chevron deference. Because up until that point, so I didn't even know that you wrote for the reload for that, and then I saw on your Twitter that you posted the article. I read it. It was like one of those things that everybody was blowing up. I mean, it is very important, but people were catastrophizing, and reading your article on it made me feel like I understood what it was for the first time, because it was explained to me that apparently now corporations were going to be running the country as if they weren't already, but we're going to be like writing laws essentially, and I was like, well, that doesn't sound kosher.
That's not correct either.
No, and yeah, it was very refreshing to hear your take on it, because I think when you have as much knowledge as you have, but you're able to explain it succinctly and clearly for dum-dums like myself, or for people who don't have a history in law, it's awesome.
I really appreciate you saying that.
Beneficial.
It's actually that's what I've always wanted to do, is I want to take complicated things and say them in plain English, because I think most people who talk about like legal and policy stuff are intentionally making themselves like try to sound smart, but in reality they just sound stupid. So, and I always say, it's because I still write like a mechanic, and I hope that hope that I'm doing that.
It comes full
Yeah,
circle.
It was great. I love the reload. I love Steve Kotowski. We had
He's
him
great.
on the podcast before.
Oh, you've had him on the podcast?
Yeah.
I don't think he was allowed to come on This Week in Guns.
No?
Yeah, because he has to clear it with his main
Yeah, with
job.
CNN.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention it, but I feel like they would have probably looked at it and been like,
Yeah.
no.
He mentioned it on here, so I'm assuming it's okay for us to.
Yeah. No, but like multiple times I've been like, come on the show, and he watches the show. I feel like he would want to, but I don't feel like they'd want that.
Yeah, maybe we got in under the radar because we were pretty small, I think, still when he came on. So maybe CNN didn't know what we were all
well, we
about.
say some just horrible shit, so.
They're listening, some poor interns listening to an episode, and it's just like, what the fuck?
It's just like I've been cackling at something.
So typically, well, people are very gracious about coming on this show.
I know.
We did have our first rejection recently. I think we already talked about this, but
yeah,
it was right after the episode where the guy from Grizzly Medical talked about shooting a guy and then like fucking the bullet holes. And
hypothetically, like he's essentially he was saying that if somebody broke into his house, he'd have a half job. No, if somebody broke into his house, like you wake up at morning wood. And like, God forbid, you walk down the stairs, you've got your gun, you're at half chub. And then he made the joke. He said, if I'm going to make holes, I'm going to use them.
Big.
But the day after that episode aired, we asked this nice lady from Armed and Styled if she wanted to come and talk about like fashion.
No, it wasn't Armed and Styled.
Stuff. Oh, sorry. I don't remember who it was then.
It's okay. We don't have to name them. I don't want to have to call them
out. No, it's fine. We'll just bleep it out anyways.
It actually wasn't from Armed and Styled. I'm not just saying that to take the...
I don't remember. It was a nice lady, and she was like, "Hey, you guys are super cool, but I don't think this is my brand."
Yeah, she said, "I think it's a little too." She used the term like raunchy or explicit. It's too explicit for me. And
Fuck
I was
those
like,
people.
Fair. Well, you know what? I at least gave her. I respected her for being honest, because some people. Nobody who we interact with, because
I'm washing my hair that day. I can't.
Yeah, exactly, or something like that. Like, oh yeah, sure. Let me get back to you tomorrow, and then ghost.
Right.
Or even sets up a date to record, and then completely drops off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And then when we run into them at SHOT Show, they're like, "Oh hey, good, like nice seeing you at SHOT Show," and totally pretends like they didn't just ghost us. Anyway. Not that ever happened.
Not that we're mad about it.
I wasn't mad, but I was a little annoyed
not that we're like butthurt and sad.
No, not that I'm like fucking dreaming about this person and running them over with my car.
I'm not petty.
No.
You should tell on them. Who was it?
I don't even remember her name.
Oh, it was a woman?
We'll bleep it out. It's
Yeah.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I don't know who the fuck that is.
I
Valid.
have no qualms against her. I thought it was kind of immature the way that I don't know.
Probably what happened is she didn't have any personal problems with us. But she works at a shooting range and she does content for the shooting range. So probably somebody found out that we're like pro gay or whatever, and
or whatever.
And like her boss is like, you can't do gay stuff. You can't like you can do performatively
homos.
funny gay stuff for us, but you can't do
Yes.
actually pro gay stuff for someone
Yeah.
else.
You can intimate that you're gonna kiss a girl. But
In fact, you don't have to do that for social media. You can do that right now in my office.
yeah, it's whatever.
If you want to keep
and
your
also,
job.
I was joking.
Oh
Not-
God, no.
I was joking. Don't beat her up. I think that's
Unless she swings first.
yeah, fuck it. Once the game is on.
I don't want to fight people that carry guns. I don't want to do that.
I don't want to fight people. Personally.
Yeah, no, fighting is like
I've seen way
lame.
too many videos of people
Fighting's
like
bad.
killing people by accident. Or
Imagine-
going to jail.
Imagine thinking you're gonna look cool in a fist fight. I've never
Dude,
seen. An
I don't look
actual
cool when
fist
I
fight
run.
Where...
Never mind fighting somebody. If I run, do
His
something
wife-
mildly athletic.
No, you don't
I look
understand.
like an
His
idiot.
wife laughed at him, like fully
Yes.
laughed at him when she saw a video of him running at Woodland Brutality.
Dude, she was
In bed
cackling,
next to him.
cackling, in bed. She saw a video of me
That's the most brutal
running.
shit.
Dude, it's like, oh my God, that's like pulling your pants down for the first time and getting a laugh. Yeah.
Matt, I hate to do this to you. There's a shit ton more stuff we want to explore with you, but Jordan's gonna pass out. He almost died today. I don't know if you know that. He almost got lit
I
on
didn't
fire.
almost die. My mower caught fire, but I didn't almost die. I sprung into action actually.
kind of mower with
do you-
it.
It was a Cub Cadet ride on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What? One of the later Mahindra ones?
No, it's got a Briggs. No, it's got a
Briggs.
Kawasaki motor.
Okay.
It's probably my fault.
He
I
probably put a bunch of leaves in the engine or something.
No, that's not where they go. I take care of my stuff. I got it serviced at the beginning of the summer.
He tried to put
but-
sticks in the gas tank.
You have somebody else servicing your mower.
Yeah, it's a time thing, not a knowledge.
Do you let
thing.
someone else
It's-
piss through your dick?
I don't think that's as easy as
I
having
would.
somebody service my mower, Matt. Yeah, no, it was a time thing. I was like,
Oh,
you
it's
know,
a time thing.
it was a time thing.
Well, now he really wants to leave.
Now I really want to. Oh
No,
man,
but I
thanks for making me
wanted
feel
to-
like thanks for making me feel like a piece of shit. But, my
Man, I
mower
wanted
caught
to-
fire
I
probably
wanted-
because I didn't take care of it, right? Probably wouldn't have caught fire if I serviced it myself.
Yeah.
Instructions unclear. I peed on my mower.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, I know how to get this guy back in for the big service.
Yeah, exactly. Let's make this shit catch on fire in
Throw the
exactly
thermite
4
in it.
months. Well, it's funny because like I had to. You can't push a ride-on lawnmower like it's because it's the way that the gearing is or whatever. It's
Yeah.
just, dude. I pulled it into my garage once and I almost fucking had a hernia. Like it was. I attached a rope to it and just dragged it like you would.
I've actually had a hernia before. If you want to know what it's like,
No.
it sucks.
Yeah, I'm sure. I have friends of mine that have had it and it does not look fun.
Right.
Especially after the surgery when you have to like go really easy. But
Yeah,
I
10
attached
pounds.
a tow rope.
Everything weighs more than 10 pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't lift more than 10 pounds. Everything's more than 10 pounds.
Yeah,
We're
that
really
sucks.
in the weeds here. Matt, what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
say,
yeah.
what I'm trying to say, Matt, is I want you to come back for part 2, and I want to touch on Patreon questions. Is that
We have a
something you
bunch
would
of
be
other
able to?
questions and we
Sure.
have some other stuff, but yeah, it's
So as
just,
long as you make me look good.
we'll definitely make you look
What?
good. We definitely won't do like a master cut of you saying the most random stuff and put it out of context to make you look silly at all. I would never do that. But yeah, dude.
This comes up. I don't know. This has come up like a few times recently, but back in the day in our, when we were still in the single digits with this fucking show, we had a few missteps, and we put, I don't know if it's like cool to like talk about it like on record, but there was something that one of the guests said, and then immediately was like, "Oh, cut that out." Oh, cut that out. And we thought he was joking, and it was so fucking funny. We put it in the promo for the episode.
It was so bad. It was so, like, the way he said, no, cut that out. It sounded like it was part of the joke.
Right.
And I immediately got
What's wrong with you?
This is when I still use Snapchat, and I had a Snapchat, and he didn't have my number, but he had that. And I got
he was like,
these
immediately
all
take that
caps.
down.
I was getting like Snapchat phone calls. And I was like, I've never gotten phone calls on Snapchat. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought you were kidding. It was so funny. The comment was hilarious. And then in retrospect, like, obviously this is definitely not the first time we've brought it up. It's kind of funny, but it was totally unintentional. And
I think he's still mad at us.
maybe that's why we haven't been on their show.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
I went on their show once, and I was having internet problems, and we had to stop it, and I have not been back on. I'm not salty about it, but I really am not. Like, shit gets busy, but I would like to be on.
Sure, it's whatever.
It's whatever, guys. Like, I'm not gonna go cry about it or anything. Again, I'm all done with that. But Matt,
I would like to do like a recording part 2 soon, so we can stitch the 2 parts together.
That's fine.
For the
if
release.
that works for you, we can work something.
No, that
out.
also works for my wife, who's standing in the doorway to my office, wondering.
It's still like, you need to stop.
Well, it didn't help that we started an hour late.
Sam, you want to say hi?
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for lending your husband to us.
I'm probably gonna get in trouble now.
My wife's already upstairs asleep, and she always makes the joke whenever we do one of these late podcasts, or if I have to edit the podcast late at night. She's like, "I'll see you at 3 a.m," and I always say, "No, I'll be in sooner."
It's gonna be
and
fine.
It's like
it's
3
gonna be
in the
quick.
morning. But yeah,
no, Sam's super
I've been
supportive because like whenever we record This Week in Guns, it's like me and Ivan are night owls. We start at 1, but
Fuck yeah.
she also can't sleep without me. And so,
so you're keeping her up?
well, yeah, no, and she'll just be sitting there. She'll be just in the office, sitting there.
she gets
Just watching you talk to your friend.
She's sitting there. But I'm like, why don't you like join in? Why don't you like talk about it? She's like, and she's from North Carolina. She's like, no, I ain't doing that.
Is that how you make your wife sound?
That's how she sounds. She sounds like that. Oh, that's not what I sound like.
That's so funny.
Matthew.
Well, if you weren't in trouble before.
You might be now.
All right, but yeah, no, just let me know.
My wife loves when I make fun of her the way she talks.
I can't tell if Sam actually likes it or actually hates it. It's one or the other. She smiles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She also smiles when
This
she's
could be
like
the smile of
demonstrably
death.
mad.
She's smiling like, you motherfucker.
She's
Smiling
smiling
like,
like thinking
I'm gonna
about she's
poison
eating
you.
that.
Yeah. Slowly drip Visine into your coffee over the course of 2 years.
It's a classic way.
Yeah, absolutely. My
Sick
water's been
reference,
tasting super off recently. I
Yeah,
don't know
but I
why.
can see everything.
I can see clearly. Clear
So it
eyes.
works like that.
Anyway.
You drink the Visine, your eyes get better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
dude, you
your
ever tried
kidneys.
it?
That's why I drink starter fluid every morning to wake up. Anyway.
But
I
yeah,
have
you go to
cancer.
Breadman, you're good.
Riddled. All right, buddy.
Right.
Matt, thank you so much for coming on, dude.
All right. Talk to you later.